Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton at Big C Sports. Coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the number one network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the number one sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. I want to tell you, bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada, we love you. In Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south, in the land of the free and the home of the brave, on a beautiful October the 8th, 2019. Rondo Deportes, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Charlton, it's still heated down here in the South. It feels almost like summer, and everything is hot, just like baseball is hot, football is hot. But you think about 63 years ago today, Charlton, that Don Larson of the New York Yankees pitched the only perfect game in World Series history as he shut out the Dodgers 5-0 in Game 5, Charlton. What a great historical moment in the Major League Baseball.
It really was a dynamic moment, Big C, and I hope the Dodgers, I know the Dodgers don't want to see any repeat of history at Big C coming up with the good old boys from the Nationals. It's all fair and love and war. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. When you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars. You know, you talk about things that are hot. Baseball's hot, football's hot. There's talk about, don't say anything bad about the people in China hot. Too many people that are putting money into American corporations. Also, I just love the fact that the WNBA is crowning a championship and is taking on baseball in the playoffs. It's taking on football, Big C. It's even willing to take on some politics. I want to say it's all fair and love and war. But give me your thoughts about something that we talk about all the time. They're having rolling blackouts in California because of the heat index. We don't have the humidity you good old boys have down south. But PG&E is telling people they may turn off power for an hour at one time. You may lose a lot of produce and food. That doesn't make any sense, Big C, but it's necessary. Your thoughts?
Well, it's a political measure, Charlton, when you think about a state that has such a vast population and you haven't done anything as far as energy-wise to keep up with the growth of the state. These are the perils that you live with in that state.
Yeah, it happens. Hopefully people can just keep their perishables on ice, if that makes any sense. I want to say Big C Sports brought to you by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports podcast. And you'll hear from our sponsors. You'll hear welcome to the show. I'll introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing. And I really appreciate all of our sponsors for their love and support. I know there's a lot going on in sports, Big C, and we love covering it on Big C Sports. But I had told you about the rolling blackouts that we're having in Northern California. There's also that National Suicide Hotline. I know people want to know who won the game and give me the score, but people matter more than sports, Big C. 800-273-8255. 800-273-8255. You can text 838-255. That's 838-255. Big C, that's really important in times of emergencies, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, this number, Charlton, has become a lifeline for many Americans, someone to reach out to and speak to in times of desperation when you're dealing with mental and emotional problems, Charlton. The National Suicide Hotline number, Charlton, was originally invented for military personnel because we lose some 20 military personnel in this country every day to suicide, Charlton, which is a horrific number. And we have to find a way in this country to stem that, to give aid to those people who have come back from the horrificness of war, the battles that they wage mentally and physically over there, Charlton, when they're away from home, and when they come back, not finding the support base that they're sorely needed for them, Charlton, and they find themselves in these horrific incidents that they find no way out of.
Yeah.
And so the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number, Charlton, is there to call, to reach out to people who are not going to be judgmental on you, who are not going to look at you and say that you're a failure, that you're a loser, that you are a person of value, that you value in American society. So people don't hesitate in giving out that number. I mean, a lot of people are at sporting events, take a Sharpie and write it on a bathroom wall or something, or just write it any place that you can.
Yep.
But leave that number out there for people to reach out to, the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number.
800-273-8255, 800-273-8255, or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255, and you can hopefully get some help. I want to just give another shout out because I got a nice little tweet out from former Playboy model and Baywatch TV actress and swimsuit model Donna DeErico. Really appreciate you following Big C Sports. Big C, I want to get into something that happened also, because entertainment and sports, it really mixes. I know so many people talk about not mixing certain things. Well, I like gumbo. I had some really good gumbo the other day. It was so good, I could still taste it. I didn't even want to floss my teeth. That gumbo was so good, Big C. But good things come when you mix things together. I want to thank, I would say, national icon Oprah Winfrey. She made a $13 million donation. First, I thought it was to my bank account, Big C. I was really happy, and I realized she made it to Morehouse College, and just as happy for Morehouse. This is after billionaire investor Robert K. Smith had paid off the tuition for the graduating class of 2019. You can't take your money with you. I heard the great Denzel Washington say something one time: no matter how much money we make in life, you cannot take it with you. Put it to use to help people while we're alive. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I really sing the praise of Oprah Winfrey in making this donation to Morehouse College. This is the second donation that she has made to this institution, Charlton, which now brings her grand total up to $25 million that she has donated to Morehouse College. And when you think about philanthropists like Oprah Winfrey and how valuable education is to her, she's also set up a girls' school in Africa, Charlton, and taking care of all the tuition and housing for those young ladies over in Africa. So Oprah is wide-reaching as far as education occurs, but giving it back into the black community. I know we all saw her on television, and everybody was looking at the composite of her audience, saying it wasn't many black people in there, Charlton, but she's put her hand in her mouth where her money is and giving it back to the black community over and over. Yeah, over and over. And I want your thoughts on this, because as people attain education, even the diaspora out of Africa, off the African continent, where all life came from, people learn to migrate to different parts of the planet, Big C. So you're not just going to stay in your tribe. And how narrow-minded it is of anyone who wants to attain knowledge, whether you're talking about Aristotle or Socrates or Plato. They all have to go out and discover it. Even Christ himself had to go about teaching. You can't stay in one spot. So whether Oprah or Bill Gates or anyone of nature that has a lot of money, you have to go around, and you're going to have people who come to you. So sometimes people don't choose to get out. That's why they don't find where she is. Big C, your thoughts? Well, Oprah has always been in the forefront, Charlton, since her early days back in Chicago in television when she got on the talk show circuit. And she has always been a leader by example. When you think about what she has exemplified as far as black power in America, Charlton, she has been there. She has moved the needle. She has showed people how to be successful, not to sit there and say that I am owed something, but to take command of their lives. And Oprah's been in the mainstay of that ever since she's been in television and beyond.
Well, and in Rome, you do as the Romans do, Big C. People have to you got to go outside of your boundaries to learn anything. It doesn't matter what color you are. I want to talk about boundaries, because there's some boundaries around Major League Baseball tonight. And congratulations to the Yankees. They've done it so many times, like a handshake for the Yankees to get into the playoffs, Big C. And so they got rid of Minnesota, and it was a great, just a theater to see that stadium packed in Minnesota. But there's something about the Yankees, and I just want to ask you a question, because America loves to build you up, and America loves to tear you down. But I don't get tired of seeing the Yankees in the playoffs. It just makes baseball better, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, the Yankees personified what professional baseball is, Charlton. They've won 27 World Series in their history. And when you think about what Gabe Torres got, New York Yankees in doing last night in the second inning home run to get the ball rolling for them, Charlton, and that was all that they needed. Yeah. Because they got solid pitching throughout the night, eliminating the Minnesota Twins 3-0 in that series, Charlton. Now they get some extra rest for that next series that's up. Yeah, you think about two of his doubles made a pair of sparkling defensive plays. It fueled the Yankees to a 5-1 victory over the Minnesota Twins on Monday night, and they finished them off in the AL. And I know that has to be on the minds of the Houston Astros tonight, because the team that they're going to face is already resting. The good thing for the Astros, we can't just pencil them in yet, Big C. Like Dennis Green said, you want to crown them, crown them. We can't crown them until they win.
But if they get the chance to face the Yankees, it's in the nice air-conditioned building down in Houston, Big C. Is that an advantage or no, Big C? Your thoughts?
It's not going to be an advantage at this time of the year. You're talking about the two top teams in the American League. If the Houston Astros are able to get past the Tampa Rays tonight, Charlton, and they're pitching Justin Verlander in that game on just 2 days rest.
Yeah.
Will he be able to do what Dallas Keuchel, a former teammate of his with the Astros, wasn't able to do for the Atlanta Braves? And Keuchel gave up 3 home runs last night, which was the demise of the Atlanta Braves against the St. Louis Cardinals. And now you're looking at Verlander trying to come back and do that again tonight, Charlton, with a 2 days rest against the Rays, hoping that they can get this team some extra rest and he can complete at least 7 innings tonight.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to just seeing the best against the best. No disrespect at all to Tampa, but they do have an ugly stadium. But I just want to see the best of the best, and that would be the Yankees and the Astros going across the plate, Big C. St. Louis, they all knew every single game, every single one of them. Paul Goldschmidt of the St. Louis Cardinals, Ozzie Albies, and the rest of the Atlanta Braves. So it was a tough out to get out in front of this incredible environment. Both teams are well supported by their fan base. And you look at what the Braves have, it's tough to beat Yadier Molina in a big postseason spot. Molina pushed the Cardinals to a deciding Game 5 in the NL Division Series. Now think about this, tying a single game in the 8th inning and then lifting a sacrifice fly in the 10th inning to beat the Braves 5-4 on Monday. But no matter what happens in this series, and I know people say you can't blame one player because Acuna didn't throw a pitch, and last I checked, he didn't throw not one pitch in this series. But that hot dogging mentality, if the Braves don't get out of this, you can't leave runs on the bases in the playoffs, Big C. I hope he's learned from that. But if they don't get through this series, you know people are going to make an issue of that. If they get through this series, hopefully he's learned from experience. Your thoughts?
Well, in every baseball game, you always leave runs on the base. There's always 1, 2, 3 runners stranded, Charlton, in games. And everybody wants to look back at that game with Acuna saying, well, if he had a hustle, that, the Braves may have won game 1. But also he hit a home run in the 8th inning to bring the Atlanta Braves close.
Yeah.
So one offsets the other. Other players have to deliver when you're in the game. You can't put it all on one. We always look at the pitcher when he gets giving up hits. Well, the defenders have to get the ball when it's in the outfield and throw somebody out, Charlton. So, to go back and look at Acuna Jr., who's just 21 years old, and what he's done all year long in baseball, management understands the youthfulness of this young guy.
Yeah.
But he might have made a mistake in running the bases, but he also made up for it in hitting a home run. He has other teammates that are not hitting those home runs, Charlton.
Yeah, and it's all fair and love and war, and I love what you said, because I know it was a game where Milwaukee, they had a player that missed a ground ball, and people said that he's the reason they lost. No. Every pitcher is in control of whether you win or lose. But we don't pay attention because oftentimes a starter may throw between 70 and 100 pitches. But out of those 70 and 100 pitches, how many, and this is something people don't really look at. They look at balls and strikes, Big C. But how many times do people look at, and is this something that maybe a scouting team could come up with? They scout every single player. They scout every position, whether they have the switch on or not. And they don't scout if a player is not throwing to how they scouted that player. Sometimes you don't throw down the middle to some players. Other guys, you can hit a fastball, but they can't hit a curve or a sinker or a slider. They don't count if the pitcher threw the wrong pitch, like a quarterback made the wrong audible. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Dallas Keuchel last night for the Braves gave up 3 home runs in 3 innings. You can't blame Ronald Acuna Jr. for that. Dallas Keuchel gave up the 3 runs, which were the difference.
Yep.
And then when you get, the catcher hitting the single in the 8th and the sacrifice fly in the 10th to win the game, you can't go back and blame a Ronald Acuna Jr. for these things, Charlton, because he had no control of it. He had no part in those plays. So if the Braves go off and lose tonight, you got to look back at Dallas Keuchel in 3 innings, giving up 3 home runs last night.
Yeah, and so congratulations that we're seeing good baseball. Now in L.A., there's a song called "I Love L.A." And everybody loves L.A. unless you're driving in that traffic. But you see, sometimes you don't love L.A. then when you're dealing with the traffic. But when Max Muncy hit that home run last night, you go, here we go again. And the Dodgers looked like they were going to roll at least maybe 5 to 6 runs. But it didn't happen. in the nation's capital last night, Max Scherzer, I would call him the great Max Scherzer, season-saving 7-inning pitching performance in Ryan Zimmerman's 3-run home run. That lifted the wild card Nationals to a 6-1 victory over the National League's best LA Dodgers Monday night, and is forcing a deciding Game 5 in the National League Division Series. And I'll tell you one thing, just my opinion, and I don't know if Roberts is going to make this mistake or not. You do not want to see Clayton Kershaw pitch at all in this series if they're going to advance. Just my opinion. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you look at what the Washington Nationals did last night, you got to think about the LA Dodgers are in panic mode right now. Scherzer was the dominant pitcher once again on the mound for the Nationals. And when you think about Zimmerman, this is a young man who has grown up in that organization. They drafted him in that organization. They brought him up as a 20-year-old rookie, Charlton, into the major leagues. And you think about this momentous moment last night, hitting that home run to put the Nationals ahead in Nationals Park in D.C.
Yeah.
Just a big game, Charlton. This is a team that was down and out. Nobody gave a chance to. They're the wild card team, playing against the best record in Major League Baseball and standing toe-to-toe with the Dodgers.
Yeah. Now, when people say the best record in baseball in the National League, they've also had that same saying the last 2 years when they got to the World Series. So having the best record and being able to relax in the confines of Chavez Ravine, it was supposed to be an advantage, but it hasn't been. It's been the team with the lesser record coming in there winning the last couple of years. But we'll see what happens. It's exciting baseball. I think you'll find the best players come to the forefront. It's not going to be about salary. My own opinion again, I think Kershaw is a liability for the Dodgers. All that money and no production, they're trying to hide him, but you can't hide people when you need people. Do you see him coming on, or is that a mistake in your opinion? Yes or no? Your thoughts?
Well, I think you have to pay him. I mean, he's been the ace of the Dodgers staff for a decade. You got to get him in a game in situations, Charlton, because you're only looking for a couple innings from this guy. But you also got to deliver from the bats. I mean, it's easy to put all the onuses on a pitcher, but we got to look at the bats not delivering for the Dodgers. Last night, Washington was hot. The Dodgers couldn't get any hits. Scherzer he was his same dominant pitcher himself on the mound last night, and there was no answer for him. So the Dodgers have to find an answer with the bat as well as at the pitching mound.
Yeah, well, obviously it's all fair in love and war. We love seeing competition. We love to see people, like the great Bruce Buffer said, fighting in the National League. The Dodgers, and they're taking on the Nationals. Going to be a great game no matter who wins. You know, I'm pulling for the West Coast, guys. It's like Obi-Wan Kenobi. The Dodgers, you're our only hope on the West Coast, Big Z. But when you think about West Coast, and we talk about sports and how it's a billion-dollar industry, and boys and girls sports is the foundation to this billion-dollar industry. In Silicon Valley, in the South Bay of the San Francisco Bay Area, it's the wealthiest region in the United States for billionaires. There's more billionaires in Silicon Valley than even in New York, and that's amazing. But think about this. Billionaires turning out, I won't say all the fans are billionaires, that's not realistic. But to see the environment last night for Monday Night Football, it kind of took you back to the days of Candlestick Park, Big C, where the crowd was really into the game and the 49ers beat down the Browns. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you have to win to bring out the crowds, and that's something that California teams haven't done a lot of lately, especially in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
But as you look at the 49ers in this game, getting off to their best start in the last 30 years, up against the Cleveland Browns, the Browns had all the preseason hype because of off-field accusations that they made during the summer. But as I said before, you got to get those players to mesh. Everything looks good on paper until the ink dries.
Yeah.
Then you figure out the ink doesn't move anymore once it's dry.
Yeah.
And that's been the Cleveland Browns when you look at what their organization has not done this football season.
Well, I want to, it's easy to criticize, but we praise too. People can criticize us, our praises. It's all fair in love and war. Big-time quarterback duel never developed. The 49ers stayed perfect, dominating Baker Mayfield and the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland, we need help. 31-3, Matt Breida ran 83 yards for a touchdown. On the 49ers' first play from a scrimmage, it was Baker Mayfield that was harassed, Big C, into his worst game as a professional athlete, as the 49ers stayed unbeaten, and as you mentioned, the best start in 30 years. But I want to go back to something because it's easy to kick someone when they're down. But this boy, I won't call him boy, beg your pardon, this young man in Baker Mayfield, And Richard Sherman's he's no politician, Big C. He had the same, stuff to get in Kaepernick's face back in the day. But why would Baker Mayfield not do what his teammates did? It's just customary from high school, even Pop Warner. A little handshake when you come to the middle of the field because you represent your team, not your own ego. He didn't do that, and it makes more fire and more darts aimed at him, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, ironically, he did shake Richard Sherman's hand before the coin toss. So Richard Sherman came out and lied, getting publicity for himself in that matter. But after the coin toss, Charlton, it's not always customary to shake somebody's hand. You headed back to the sideline to get into the game plan, and that's what happened. He went out just like the rest of the players on the field and shook everybody's hand. Richard Sherman needed some notoriety to go along with the interception that he had gotten during the game. But this game was more about the 49ers than it was the Browns. If you look at where Baker Mayfield is, you talk about a quarterback that's struggling. Only 8 completions last night for 100 yards.
Wow.
And Nick Chubb had 87, almost as many yards rushing as Baker Mayfield had throwing. So if they'd have put the ball in Nick Chubb's hands more often, as I said, that offense needs to run through Nick Chubb.
Yeah.
You look at the San Francisco 49ers. They understand what the running game is all about. They're leading the NFL in rushing this year. So when people want to think about the success of the San Francisco 49ers, you look no further than their running game. They had 222 yards rushing last night against this Cleveland Brown defense that is really struggling. The whole team is struggling. You're led by a coach who's never been in that position before. So you could talk about the 49ers being 5-0 with quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo, but it's all about their running game. They've run for 137 yards less than what they've thrown for this year. So this team is about ball control and keeping the opposing teams off the ground. And I think that the Browns need to start looking at some trades. They need to figure out who they can dispose of because they're going to have Kareem Hunt coming in a couple of weeks. That's going to be an overload on offense. Right now they need some help on the offensive line. Maybe they should trade Odell Beckham, send him to the Washington Redskins. They have an offensive tackle, Trent Brown, who wants out of Washington. That'd be Trent Williams, rather. That'd be a great move for both teams. Washington needs a receiver. Cleveland needs an offensive tackle.
I want to get your thoughts on something as a defensive player. I know Bosa came in with the racial epithets, but, that goes on within the same ethnic groups and outside of ethnic groups. Everybody does what they want to do. You can always atone. And when I saw Bosa, who's always been injured, even in Ohio State, he was always injured. I think they had a Cotton Bowl game against USC. He was injured in that when the great Sam Darnold was at the Trojans as well. And when I saw him play last night and he was being double-teamed, he was kind of like Reggie Wright with that bull rush. He would fight the double team but then go around them because Baker Mayfield doesn't step up into the pocket, Big C. Did you notice that as a defensive player? Your thoughts?
Well, the 49ers have a great defensive line when you think about it. When you think about Thomas, you think about Buckner, you think about Bosa, the kid you were just talking about, and Frank Clark. Charlton, the defensive line of the 49ers, who do you double team? That's where it is. They bring pressure all night long. Their defensive line has been dominant. When you look at the pressure that they put on all opposing quarterbacks this year, not just Baker Mayfield, it allows the secondary to be good. And that linebacking core. This team, they can bring it defensively. They have some outstanding young personnel. John Lynch has done a tremendous job of amassing talent, and the 49ers are delivering on the field.
They're delivering on the field, and as a defensive player, I know defense wins championships, but this team is going to get, I think this starting to happen. I know Garoppolo got the $137 million of what it is. He's still not playing like 130. He's no Joe Montana or Steve Young. I'm not knocking the man, but their defense is winning. But if my math is right, and it may not be because I haven't looked it up, you look at the Niners' wins. They won over Tampa. Tampa's a good team, but they played a horrible first game down in Tampa. They've also beaten Cincinnati. Cincinnati hasn't beaten anyone this year. They've beaten the Browns. The Browns only have 2 wins this year, and they've been blown out twice in a couple of games, Big C. And then you look at what the 49ers did with Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh has 1 win. So is this a deceptive 4-0? I mean, you take a win whether it's 1 point or 20 points, but I want to get to the meat of the season because you're going to have 2 teams from the NFC West make the playoffs. It's either going to be the Rams, Seattle, and the 49ers. Are they good enough from what you've seen to go to that dance, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, they have shown that they're good enough. They're 5-0. I mean, they line up week in, week out, and play the team that's there in front of them. I mean, if you look at the New England Patriots schedule, who would the New England Patriots beat? Their schedule has been no tougher than the San Francisco 49ers, and no one's knocking the New England Patriots.
Yeah. Well, it's always exciting. I think when you have such a history of losing, you kind of want to hold on to your bet and make sure that is something worth getting into. But I'm excited about what I see so far. I've always liked defense. I've loved offense too. But when I see a defense that can come in and get a play, I think there was number 11 for the Browns. Baker Mayfield threw a nice pass. I think it was a post play. And the receiver caught the ball, didn't hold on to it, spun over, and the ball was flipped up into the air, and it was returned down to the red zone by the 49ers. You can't blame Baker for that. That's a receiver issue too, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, there has to be a different category when receivers drop the ball's off their hand. We saw that with Dak Prescott. We saw that with Lamar Jackson also. Balls are tipped, go into a defender's hand, and the quarterback gets credit for the interception. But also if that defender tips the ball and it goes into the receiver hand, the quarterback gets credit for the touchdown pass.
Yeah, we know it's all fair and love and war. Great showing by the 49ers last night. I want to say before we get into the Big C pause or the Big C timeout, you know, I really appreciate and respect everybody's religious belief. Today is Yom Kippur. It's the biggest religious day for the Jewish faith. Deals with a lot of fasting and atonement. And people talk about religion and beliefs and politics and sports. It's all the same. You got to have a passion and a belief in something. But something that I really appreciate is that this whole sports business, when I played ball, Big C, in college, I had teammates that were part of Bloods and Crips. There were some guys that were part of Aryan Nation, some guys from different whatever junk they were involved in before they got on the team. But through sports, the dirt comes out in the wash. It took a lot of men that were misguided and maybe had bad beliefs and put them in nefarious situations, and football galvanized people. So if it takes religion to do that, I'm all for that. But how do you coincide religion and sports? It's all good. A lot of people pray for good things. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you look at religion, Charlton, everybody has a pregame prayer in the locker room prior to going out onto the field, just like singing the national anthem. That is basically a prayer that athletes have prior to a game.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I think it brings a lot of people together. We're going to do what's called the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. And after we take it, we're going to come talk more about some football as well as some other things in the world of sports. We'll take that pause, and we hope that you'll come back and join us. All right, we are back from what's called the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. And you can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 sports podcast in the universe on iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity Comcast Television. And the apps that I really love is by Alexa and Google. Just say Alexa or Google, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You'll hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing. And I really appreciate the growth we're having anywhere in the universe with Big C Sports. Big C, I want to just say this because we talk about technology. We talk about so many things. Anywhere you go in the world, you can say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast, and the show will come up. With all the 8 billion or so people on the planet, I think that's absolutely amazing that technology can do that. If you're at a radio station and you're not streaming, your outreach is maybe 50 to 100 miles. Big C, your thoughts on technology?
Well, this is what artificial intelligence has brought to society, Charlton, around the world, is that we've become so dependent on electronics that it's just the mainstay in your life, whether it's your doorbell, whether it's your car. Everything is run off electronics today.
Yeah, it really is. And I know I said we're going to talk about Big C's NFL, but I want to bring up something just to piggyback off of what you said. You know this talk about China and United States and NBA. The NBA and China, detente depends on people keeping the peace. In this international trade, we know about the tariffs between POTUS and China, etc. But think about something. The NBA in China, the backlash over the Houston Rockets organization, and Daryl Morey, his comments, backing whatever political side he believed in China, freedom of speech, etc. Now, the NBA and China have sources that say at least 300 million Chinese citizens watched at least one NBA game last year. At least 300 million Chinese citizens play NBA basketball recreationally. That's amazing, Big C. There's only 330 to 340 million people in the United States alone. We got to keep that peace going, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, what the political realm is versus the sports realm, you know, people are going to play basketball regardless of where they are.
Yeah.
They're going to watch basketball. If China puts a tariff on NBA games being shown in China, then the NBA needs to find a way to make peace with them.
Yeah, make peace. And it's called streaming. Because unless they can block the signal, you can stream. You can still follow Big C Sports in China.
Well, in China, the country controls the media in China as well as most European bloc countries. It's not, you don't have the freedom that you have here in the United States.
That's true.
So whenever they want to block the internet streaming in China, they have the ability to do that.
Well,
it's not a free country like it is here in the United States. It's not a democratic society.
Well, when you go to Macau, it's part of China, and they have their own constitution, and that's where gaming exists. But it does not exist in China. It's just like going to Tahoe if you're in California. So people have a way of getting it. In fact, in Macau, 50% of their revenue is generated through gaming. That make any sense? You have more, 50% of the revenue is generated through gaming. It's bigger than Las Vegas, Atlantic City. So people can be blocked by a country, but all they got to do is go a little bit further away, and they get access to the information they're looking for. So gaming is big around the country. I think the reason the NBA and Adam Silver's talking more about that, trying to keep the peace, is because there's more gaming going on that has rights to NBA teams. Guys selling shoes is not just Yao Ming. It's bigger than saying we don't want people speaking up because a lot of money's involved. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, this is the fine line you walk when it comes to politics and sports, Charlton. You know, we've seen actions of American athletes in China and other foreign countries that they got to learn the rules of that country. China really doesn't concern itself with the NBA. You think about the money that's in China when you talked about Macau, the money that they have over there, the NBA perils to it. When you want to talk about the NBA billionaires, there are more billionaires in Macau than there is in the NBA.
That's true, and a lot of them do it by electronics, Big C. I want to get into Big C. You know, China also starts with a C. How about Big China Sports, also Big C, a.k.a. Big C Sports? Sometimes the universe will justify things, Big C. I want to get into Big C's top 10 NFL, and I want to pay homage to the great Butch Buffer. I think he's the best ring announcer in the universe. And now, fighting for Big C's top 10. I'll start with, and again, it's your own opinion, number 10, Baltimore Ravens. Why would they make your top 10, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, the Baltimore Ravens, they had a couple of tough losses, Charlton, but that defense has been solid all year. Lamar Jackson has stayed consistent, and they deserve to be in the top 10.
They're a very good team. You got to see where people are at the halfway break, and we'll see. Number 9, fighting out of Philadelphia. Philadelphia Eagles makes Big C's number 9 spot. Your thoughts?
The Philadelphia Eagles are coming along, Charlton. They had a lot of injuries early in the season to their receiving corps. As they're getting healthier, they're getting better. Carson Wentz is holding up at the quarterback position. The defense is getting more solid.
They are really getting solid, Big C. Fighting the number 8 spot. The Houston Texans, them good old boys. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, we look at some trades that the Houston Texans made early in the season to shore up their offensive line. You look at Deshaun Watson, had a career day last week, over 500 yards passing, didn't get sacked once, and now their defensive line is putting pressure on opposing quarterback.
Your number 7 pick, fighting out of the great state of New York, Buffalo, number 7, Big C, your thoughts?
The Buffalo Bills are solid. When you look at the Bills, only one loss on the season, probably have the best defense in the American Conference right behind the New England Patriots, Charlton. They could have easily beat the Patriots if Allen hadn't got hurt, so this team could be ranked higher.
Well, it's always a week-by-week thing. Fighting out of Kansas City, Missouri, used to be thought about the number 2 seed, but number 6, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the Kansas City Chiefs just don't know how to play defense, Charlton. They couldn't stop a Pop Warner team right now from running the football. They're giving up 6 yards a carry on the ground. They just have no hope. And Patrick Mahomes, you really realize how great he is when the Kansas City Chiefs do win a football game.
Yeah, he's been playing with a little flat tire and hitching his giddy up. It affects things. Fighting out of the great Northwest, the Seattle Seahawks. Big C, your thoughts?
This is a team that's becoming dominant up there in the Northwest. Russell Wilson is a MVP candidate right now in the NFL. You think about 12 touchdown passes, 0 interceptions. Chris Carson is running the ball, and that defense is getting better every week with Javavian Clowney.
Yeah, they are really good. Fighting out of New Orleans, the Saints, number 4, Big C, your thoughts?
The Saints are still marching in with Teddy Bridgewater, the best backup quarterback in the NFL. They have not missed a beat since Drew Brees has gone out, Charlton. They have one loss on the season, and they're getting better. They've adapted more to Teddy Bridgewater's skill set, and that defense in New Orleans is outstanding.
Fighting out of the great Midwest, the frozen tundra, the Green Bay Packers coming at Big C's number 3. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the Packers proved their mettle last week against the Dallas Cowboys, that this is a team that now is a very balanced offense. They don't rely just on Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Jones gets the mail carried, 4 touchdowns on the ground against the Dallas Cowboys. But this defense has been an upgrade for the Packers this year and kept Dallas at bay and out of the end zone.
Fighting from the past on the West Coast, somebody from the West Coast makes Big C's top 10. Number 2, the San Francisco 49ers, Big C, your thoughts?
They're one of 2 undefeated teams in the NFL, Charlton, when you think about it. I look at the quarterbacks that Bill Belichick has drafted, Charlton, and you look at them this year, starting in the NFL, they are 13-2, 3 quarterbacks that Bill Belichick drafted, Jacoby Brissett, Jimmy Garoppolo, and Tom Brady.
Yeah.
The 49ers 5-0, defense is playing lights out. They're the number 1 rushing team in the NFL also.
Yeah, defense does win championships. And now fighting out of the great Northeast, New England Patriots. What a shock, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the Patriots are who the Patriots are, Charlton. Even when they're down, they're dominant. That defensive secondary, probably the best in the NFL right now. Tom Brady, even when he's struggling, is better than the average quarterback in the NFL.
I just appreciate so much about the sports universe and how things come together with sports. And I just want to give a personal shout out to a friend of mine going through some issues. You got to fight for what you want. No matter what the doctor says, you got to dig deep and find something that's worth fighting. You got to fight for it. You got to fight for your health. You got to fight for your family. You got to fight. Don't give up no matter what it is. Just keep fighting. Think about the great Booth Buffer. Every boxer goes into a ring. They got to fight to win. No matter what you're going through, you know who you are. Keep fighting. You're going to win. Big C, what are the biggest trades on the horizon in the NFL in your thoughts, Big C?
Well, like I said earlier, I think Trent Williams would be a great move for the Washington Redskins. Now that they've gotten rid of Jay Gruden as head coach, Trent Williams says he's not going to play for the Washington Redskins anymore. Odell Beckham is not an asset in Cleveland. You got a quarterback who cannot get him the football, and I think the disgruntledness is going to start real soon in Cleveland. And so you got a guy that's not playing in Washington. Cleveland needs an offensive tackle. Odell Beckham is an asset. Maybe they can get a draft pick as well as Trent Williams for him. But the Redskins need a game breaker at wide receiver. They haven't had one since they had Jackson there, who is now back in Philadelphia.
Yeah, it's always, you got to let people go. When they don't want to stay, no need in begging them to stay. Let them go because they're not going to be happy if you keep them where they don't want to be. I know you like ice, and it's so hot in California, we need ice. And if the California PG&E turns off the power to millions of California residents when it's almost 100 degrees in the inland valleys, you're going to need some ice to stay cool. But let's look at ice that you can skate on, Big C. I think it keeps them cool. In the NHL tonight, you have the Carolina Hurricanes. They're 3-0. They're at the Florida Panthers, Big C. Give me your thoughts. And they're skating on ice. It's not melting, though, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, the Carolina Hurricanes and all that heat wave that they're having down south has gotten off to a phenomenal start. They're undefeated on this young NHL season, Charlton. And they've always been a playoff contender.
Always a playoff contender. The Edmonton Oilers, they're 2-0. They're at the New York Islanders that are 1-1. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, coming from up there in the north, Charlton, where it's kind of cold in Canada already. And the Islanders are a team that struggled last year. Edmonton's gotten off to a terrific start.
Yeah, they have a good team up there, Big C. I want to also look at the Winnipeg Jets. They're 1-2. At the Pittsburgh Penguins, we know Pittsburgh has a much ballyhooed team up there in the Penguins, but give me your thoughts on these. I love Winnipeg coming in there, even though they're 1-2. They might have a chance to turn it around earlier, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, the Penguins are always dominant. They're always in the playoffs, deep into the playoffs every year, Charlton. Winnipeg is an upstart trying to get their footing in the NHL once again.
Yeah, well, Dallas, what is it about stars in Dallas? I remember as a young boy, I watched this program. It was called Dallas, with the great J.R. Ewing and the late Larry Hagman, Big C. He was so shrewd as a business person. I think it was him and Sue Ellen, and then he had his brother Bobby. They were always opposite sides of the moon. But the Dallas Stars, like the Cowboys, the Cowboys are 0-2 in their last 2 games. The Dallas Stars are 0-3 so far in the season. At the Washington Capitals, they're 2-1. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, they're struggling at the start of this young NHL season. The Washington Capitals, just 2 short seasons ago, they hosted Lloyd Stanley Cup, Charlton, and trying to get there once again with Alex Ovechkin.
Ovechkin, that good old boy had that cup for a long time. Like they needed some hand sanitizers for that cup. The Anaheim Mighty Ducks, they're 2-0, and they're at the Detroit Red Wings that are also 2-0. What a showdown, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the Detroit Red Wings have always been the heart of the NHL when you think about Joe Louis' city of Detroit. And they've always gotten deep into the playoffs, and they seem to be going that way once again.
Once again, Big C. San Jose Sharks 3-0. Now, there's another undefeated team in the Bay Area. The San Jose Sharks, along with the 49ers, both in the South Bay, that Silicon Valley money, showing up there 3-0 at the Nashville Predators that are 1-1, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you look at the Sharks. They were just 1 game away from making Stanley Cup last year, Charlton,
That's
and they
right.
seem to be headed back that way once again.
Also, if you go down I-5 long enough, about 5-hour drive, you'll find a city called Los Angeles, and you'll have so many teams and so many things to do in L.A. The Los Angeles Kings, they're 0-1 at the Calgary Flames that are 1-1, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you think about the city of Los Angeles, they've been struggling. We saw the Dodgers lose last night. The Kings haven't been able to get off the snide either, so the Rams also got beat up on last week.
Yeah, and don't forget, you forgot UCLA, Big C. Fight, your thoughts.
Well, they're fighting for what? UCLA's got to figure out the football season still going on.
It's still going on. Boston Bruins 2-0 at the Las Vegas Golden Knights, also 2-0, Big C. Your thoughts?
All they do is win in Boston. They made Stanley Cup last year prior to losing out to the St. Louis Blues, and they figure they have some unfinished business and want to get back.
Yeah, they want to get back, Big C. So NHL tonight, go ahead and watch it. And you might want to reach to the TV and grab some of that ice to keep you cool also. I want to throw down to NCAA football, college football teams with the best chance of still being unbeaten on November 1st. This is Big C's thoughts. I look at Georgia. The Bulldogs are 5-0. They're hosting South Carolina October 12th and hosting Kentucky October 19th. That looks like a sure win, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, those are SEC opponents, Charlton, and right now the way the Bulldogs are playing, I don't think either one of Kentucky or South Carolina can stay within 3 touchdowns of that team.
Well, it's interesting how teams like the Georgia and also the Tennessee game, the point spread was in doubt, and the good old boys from Georgia got a turnover and scored late in the game, and it covered the spread. Amazing how that happens, Big C. How do the prop bettors know? Clemson, 5-0. They're hosting Florida State, once powerful Florida State, October the 12th, and then hosting Louisville, the Cardinals, October 19th, and then they host them good old boys from Boston College, October 26th. I like the chances for Clemson, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, they really don't have an opponent right now in the ACC. Clemson will run through Florida State, who's having problems down there at the quarterback position. And by the time they get to Boston College, who lost to Kansas at home, they won't have a worry in the world.
Yeah, Kansas, Dorothy, Wizard of Oz, better than Kansas football. Big C, Alabama Crimson Tide, they're 5-0. They can't slip up. They're at Texas A&M October the 5th. They're hosting Tennessee October 19th. Bring your own Gatorade if you understand what I mean. And they host Arkansas that lost to San Jose State at home. They host them October 26th. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you look at the next 3 opponents for Alabama, all 3 of them lost last week, Charlton, and they got the mighty Alabama come to town. And Tua seems to drop 4 to 5 touchdowns on every opponent that they face. Alabama will blow out all 3.
Yeah, but let me just ask you, is there Texas A&M, I know Mon, their quarterback, was really high on how well they would play. They just haven't, they're missing something at A&M. I would have thought they'd had it figured out by now. But they did get Alabama many moons ago. I think the great Johnny Manziel was quarterback. Any hopes of a Mon Manziel performance, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, if you look at what A&M has done in their past couple of games, Charlton. They've gotten drove.
Yeah.
And so they don't stand a chance against Alabama. Kellen Mond was the only quarterback in the SEC running off his mouth at media day.
Yeah.
And he hasn't played up to his mouth. So the rest of the teams have put their production on the field.
Yeah, he maybe he should throw with his mouth, basically, but they're young boys, and sometimes you just got to learn through experience. Also, as we talk about Big C's teams with a chance to remain undefeated going into November 1st, I look at Minnesota. No one would have thought about this. The Golden Gophers, they're undefeated. They had an overtime win at Fresno State earlier in the season in California. They're 5-0. They host Nebraska. That's a tough game because Nebraska can figure things out. I know they had a sloppy win last week over Northwestern, but that's a tough team to beat too. And then you have at Rutgers on the 19th of October. The game that has to scare them is the Jekyll and Hyde team from Maryland. That's October 26th, and they're hosting Maryland. Maryland's like a car with a check engine light. Sometimes it runs great, and sometimes it sputters. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, P.J. Flick has done a marvelous job at the University of Minnesota. I know Scott Frost got all the pub last year by the first-year coach coming into the Big Ten, but P.J. Flick left Western Michigan to come to Minnesota, and just that quick, he's turned this program around and has him undefeated. And that schedule right there looks pretty easy. Nebraska just hasn't been tough this year. They've lost games that they should have lost.
Yeah. When I get that thought, there's a hierarchy of power, and you said something, I think you were being flippant, but I think you were also being true. When Clemson played North Carolina, I think North Carolina got that 2-point conversion. They didn't show the replay from the sideline to see if he got over. But to me, it looked like he got over, like another immaculate reception, Franco Harris, Pittsburgh Steelers, Oakland Raiders back in the day. But if you look at different teams and conferences, does the Big Ten not want Minnesota representing their team's conference championship game? They want Ohio State in there against somebody other than a team that's not really a sexy appeal on TV. Your thoughts?
Well, all those teams in the Big Ten will play out when you look at the 4 teams that they have undefeated. You have Ohio State, you have Wisconsin, you have Minnesota, you have Penn State. All of these teams in some form will face each other this year, Charlton, before the season is over. So somebody's going to walk out of there undefeated, and everybody else is going to have a loss.
If you look at some of the teams right now that we'll get into also, I want to ask you about conference versus conference coming up. But I look at another team that got out by the skin of their teeth. They're still undefeated. That's the great Penn State Nittany Lions. Really love that stadium when it's packed. I know they just beat down a Purdue team. The Boilermakers had a lot of injured players. But Penn State is 5-0, Big C. They're at Iowa, October 12th. Iowa played Michigan to the skin of their fingernails, Big C. And then versus Michigan, October 19th. That's a team that's playing like a wounded Wolverine. And then you look at Michigan State that played like the Spartans didn't have the swords with them when they got beat down by Ohio State. That's October 26th. It's tough for me to see Penn State getting through Iowa on the road, Michigan at home, and then at Michigan State on the road, because these are all teams they can really bring it when it counts. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you look at Iowa, Charlton, Michigan held them to 1 single yard rushing last week, and they only gave up 3 points. They didn't score a touchdown. Michigan's offense only scored 1 touchdown against Iowa, so neither one of those teams were firehouses, Charlton, when it came to putting up offensive production.
Yeah.
And Ohio State handled Michigan State. So when I look at the firepower that Penn State possesses, averaging 50 points a game, it seems like it'll be a cakewalk for all 3 of those teams.
Yeah, you would think that, but at some time teams step up and play. Who would have thought that Iowa and Michigan would have played to a 10-3 score, Big C? I don't even think they thought that going in. But you know how we talk about conferences, and I'll have to just tip my hat. The Pac-12 a little bit down this year when the best team is looking like it might be Oregon again. That struggled. They were scoreless at halftime at home, Austin Stadium, against the Cal Berkeley Golden Bears. I wouldn't imagine Alabama being scoreless at home against Cal Berkeley. I wouldn't imagine Georgia being scoreless at home against Cal Berkeley, and I wouldn't imagine Ohio State being scoreless at home against Cal Berkeley, even though their defense is pretty decent. If you were to have a Big Ten versus SEC top 3, I'm going to say the top 3 in the Big Ten. I'm looking at Ohio State number 1. I'm looking at Wisconsin number 2. And you got to say Penn State right now, rankings-wise, number 3. Give me your top 3 in the SEC. Sometimes undefeated doesn't matter, but give me your top 3 in the SEC. Your thoughts?
Well, if you're looking at the SEC right now, top three, Charlton, you got to go Alabama, Georgia, LSU. I mean, you're not going to find a more dominant trio anywhere else around the country. All of these teams, Charlton, have high-powered offense, very dominant defense, just tremendous athletes across the board. I would stack those top three SEC teams up right now, Charlton, with any three teams in any conference in America.
Let me ask you another question. Let's assume that you're going to get at least a team out of the SEC and at least a team out of the Big Ten. If you have Clemson run the table, they haven't lost in many moons. They're going to be in there. So just on today's thoughts, and you just ran this thought about what teams can go undefeated. We don't know, it changes week to week. What conference is playing as if their number 2 team would be deserving of finishing that number 4 spot? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, right now, if college football was to start today, Charlton, you're going to get Clemson in. You're going to get Oklahoma in. You're going to get Alabama in, Charlton. And then there's going to be a toss-up. There's going to be a lot of conversation about who is the next deserving team. And that next deserving team would most likely come out of the SEC if things were to stand like they are right now. And that toss-up would be between LSU and Georgia.
Yeah. Well, give me your thoughts, and you just brought it up, because this weekend we have what's called the Red River Shootout down in Texas, Big C. And I know Oklahoma and Texas, no matter what happens the rest of the season, this is their rival game. And I know everybody thinks for some reason that conference doesn't have the same respect as others, but Oklahoma's been in the Final Four the last couple of years. No, they haven't won the national championship, but they've been there consistently, a lot like Georgia, just coming up a little bit short. What are your feelings, Big C, about the Texas matchup with Oklahoma, and if the winner coming out of this game could compete well enough to get into the Final Four if they should suffer one loss? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, this is something in this game, Charlton, that Oklahoma has to protect against. You look at what Sam Ehlinger did last year against that Oklahoma defense. They were down.
Yeah.
I mean, they put up 43 points on Oklahoma. I mean, Oklahoma was chasing the whole game. If not for Kyler Murray, the game wouldn't even been close with a late touchdown in that game. I think what they have right now at quarterback in Jalen Hurts is a guy who has been through it all.
Yeah.
This is a guy that has been in 3 NCAA championship games at Alabama. He's been in 2 SEC championship games at Alabama. And if you look at the start that he's gotten off to this year at Oklahoma, he's number 1 in the Heisman balloting across the board, Charlton. He has more first-place votes than anybody.
Yeah.
I don't think that this stage is too big for him. When I look at what the quarterback Kyler Murray had to go through last year in the Red River rivalry, it was the first big game he had really ever played in his career.
Yeah.
Although he responded well, but Jalen Hurts has been down this road many times. I think that he takes command of this game early, and Oklahoma stays undefeated. They have a much better defense at this time this season than what they had last year.
Yeah.
So I give the nod to Oklahoma, and I don't see them getting defeated at any point this year.
Let me just ask you 2 more things about conferences. I know Oregon's out just because they lost to Auburn. Their best hope is Auburn running the table and getting to the SEC title game. That's not going to happen. So Oregon's best chance is to go to the Rose Bowl. If the unthinkable happens, in what should have happened, Mac Brown, I think they beat Clemson when North Carolina came calling. There was a reason they didn't show a lot of replays on that 2-point conversion where the quarterback either flipped it out to the receiver, and I think he got across that pylon, just my own thinking, and I didn't see it. But if Clemson has a loss, unlike if Alabama loses a game, they can get it back into the SEC title game. If Ohio State takes a fall, they can get it back in the Big Ten championship game. Even if you're in the Big 12, I just don't think a Big 12 team with a loss gets in. Can Clemson, because they haven't lost in many moons, if they take a fall, and I think they already have, just wasn't counted officially, do they have any hope of getting in? They don't have a really dominant team to match up with in the ACC championship final. Your thoughts?
Well, they got a team called Wake Forest that is undefeated in their conference at 5-0 also, and they'll most likely face each other in the ACC championship game. They have an outstanding quarterback at Wake Forest who is playing head and shoulders above Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
The thing about the ACC championship, they're going to get an automatic bid to the national championship playoffs, Charlton. just as well as the Big Ten will get there and the SEC.
Yeah.
The reason why the West Coast doesn't get that, because it's an up-and-down conference. Everybody's all over the place.
Yeah.
Oklahoma, the only challenge in the Big 12 they have really is Texas. They get past that challenge, Charlton, they're an automatic shoe-in. So generally the winners of those conferences will make it in. And when you look at the power of the SEC,
yeah,
you have 4 teams in the SEC ranked in the top 7 in the country.
Yep.
So no other conference has that. So that basically guarantees a berth. Clemson right now has, well, not Clemson, but Oklahoma has the highest chance of getting into the playoff based on their schedule and record.
Yeah.
So the West Coast is omitted because they just don't have any dominant team out there. Even the ones that are winning, Charlton, are not blowing anybody out. They're all close games.
Yeah, we've had Cal ranked, we've had USC ranked, Utah ranked, Arizona State ranked, Oregon ranked, Washington State ranked. They've had so many teams. Even Arizona was ranked at one time, but they tend to lose after that happens. But we'll see what happens. It's all fair and love and war. I want to turn our thoughts really quickly to Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, worldwide on the #1 podcast network in the universe on iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker.com. You can follow Big C Sports on my favorite apps, Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You'll hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he will do his thing, and I really appreciate the growth we're having with Big C Sports. I want to turn to the historical black college, Big C, and I want to focus on the tradition with the black colleges all over the United States of America, and there's some big homecoming games coming up this week. I want to get your thoughts on the flavor, because tailgating is big. We do a lot of tailgating in the United States, but sometimes it's not really shown as much in the HBCs. We have Albany State playing versus Lane this weekend, Alcorn State playing Savannah State in Georgia. We have Benedict playing Miles, Bowie State playing Chapman. There's Central State playing Fort Valley State. And here's a great program that I love talking about, Howard playing Norfolk State, and that's in Washington, D.C. at Green Stadium. It's a 1 p.m. kickoff homecoming. The celebration's big. If you're doing homecoming down south, Big C, oftentimes you may hear of food like gumbo, jambalaya. You don't often hear on the Blue Blood homecoming games, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you think about tailgating, Charlton, a lot of it originated with the historical black colleges because they didn't have the large concession areas that you had at the mainstream white universities in America. So a lot of the cooking in the parking lot took place with the grills and just the big pots of home cooking that was going out there. And as you look at the integration of schools as it went along, those people started picking up the traditions of what the black schools were doing.
Yeah.
The big party going on prior to the game, the big party continuing after the game.
Yep.
So tailgating has always been a tradition at the historical black colleges, and the food that you would get, you talk about mom's home cooking, Charlton, it was always there.
It's always fair, and that southern food, that taste, the delectables. If you had gumbo, I know you love gumbo. I love it too. I had some the other day. I still haven't flossed my teeth because the spices are so good. I think I'll wait until the weekend. I'm going to have one more bowl before I go back to flossing. Jackson State at Alabama State, Kentucky State at Clark down in Atlanta, Morgan State at Delaware State. So there's a lot going on in the sports universe. I know before we close out today on Big C Sports, on this beautiful day, and it's October, I just love so much about the history of sports and how we bring so many things together. On October 8th, in the fall of 1930, 1 year into the Great Depression, the Jones Tabernacle AME Church, which is African Methodist Episcopal Church in Philadelphia, they decided to hold what's called the Negroes Authors Week. By October 8th, they had so many people in 1930 that were in the church on the roster celebrating, reading and lectures and writing and just doing a lot of things to get people to read. And I really appreciate what we do. We ask people to Google, and that's a great tradition happening in the black American communities. Today's Yom Kippur, a lot of people celebrating, and they're atoning, Big C, and they're fasting. They're doing a lot of good things, and we hope that people can get together and break bread, and we look forward to a lot of good things happening in the sports world. Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always ask Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, after last night's game in the NFL, we were left with two undefeated teams left, the New England Patriots and the San Francisco 49ers. Bill Belichick drafted both of those quarterbacks, Tom Brady and Jimmy Garoppolo. Will one of those quarterbacks be able to go undefeated on this season?
Well, I'm sure it's something they would both love, and you can love it too every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, there's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.